Keys.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Good morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the City Commission, Manager Fuentes, and staff, welcome to the business meeting of the City Commission of the City of Truth and Consequences. It is now February 28th, 9:04, and before we call roll, I just wanted to thank Mayor Pro Tem for keeping the ship of state moving forward. While I spent some wonderful time at Sierra Vista Hospital in the emergency room, Clinic A, radiology labs, and they did a phenomenal job, and I am here, so I appreciate you on short notice filling in. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Honorable Steve Green.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead. Here. Honorable Kathy Clark. Here. Honorable Ralph Hischler.
Here.
Honorable Joshua Frankel.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam. Silent meditation is the next item on the agenda. Please keep in your thoughts and in your hearts the children of Parkland, Florida, their friends, their families, and their loved ones. Thank you. Also, if you have any device that rings or beeps or does something, if you could shut that down, we would greatly appreciate that. The next item is Pledge Allegiance. Commissioner Heschler, could you lead us in that, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is number 4, approval of the agenda. I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the agenda for February 28, 2018 as submitted.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead,
Second.
second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is public comment. There's a 3-minute rule. If you have anything you want to make part of the official minutes of this business meeting, please put it in the black box next to the microphone. State your name, your address, and the floor is yours. Wow, this might be a first.
No.
I was just going to say we might get out of here early.
Do not worry. Do not worry, Ron Fenn. Truth or consequences. I'm speaking on item H1 today. This is the supposed action for approving this meter program with YESCO. I am urging you seriously to dismiss this matter out of hand. This has not been, as in the minutes background from or the agenda says, a 2-year deal. This has been going on for 5 years. Mr. Griffith has been here since 2013 pushing for this kind of program, and it's been dismissed several times, asked and answered on many occasions. What benefit is there for the people of Truth or Consequences? The answer, always the same: none. The only benefit is to YESCO and their contractors, perhaps city manager, perhaps a few others, I don't know, whoever deals with these contracts in the first place. The list goes on, and I noticed very specifically there are no public hearings involved in this, and yet you're expecting the people of this community to pay up to $9 million. It's never been particularly cemented out as to how much money it is. But even here, at the supposed rate of $120,000 for meter reading right now, in 20 years that will be $2.4 million. Subtract that from $8-9 million and you have a nice chunk of money to spend for meters, training, the actual use of the data that's collected currently. Every meter reading, whether it's done electronically or whether it's done by a human being, is a meter reading, and that is data. We don't do anything with that data. Mr. Fuentes has had 5 years of notice by these people that what we need to do to fix this utility, and yet I don't see any programs instituted by the management of this community or the utility managers to straighten out any of this. We don't need an outside consultant coming in and telling us what time it is with our watch. And that's exactly what's going on. And $9 million is not a proper expenditure of the people's money. You found that out with the Armory. The people need to be asked. No public hearings.
Thank you. Anyone else like, Mr. Whitman?
Good morning, Commissioners. Klaus Whitman, 618 Charles. I will be addressing the same issue from a different perspective. You have heard me many, many times that I believe a replacement of the meters is desirable and financially feasible, and that's where we probably part with JESCO, because in my opinion, I have to agree with Ron, $9 million or $7 million or anything like that is an unreasonable amount of money to pay for something that from the water side can be bought for probably somewhere between 1.2 and 1.7 million dollars. And I saw earlier in the meeting here, there's a representative from Resource Wise, and here a partner of that company, Mr. and Mrs. Burke, and they have, from what I understand, made a proposal in writing to the city of TSC, and their numbers are significantly lower than anything that you have heard before. If you would like to hear from them, I'm sure that you can ask them to do that one, and not on my time, but on yours. And I think you would be enlightened to find out what the potential for the city would be. Let me say that I believe you should continue to pursue the meter replacement, because I believe that it is desirable from the total system to have the information that those meters can give you. I concur that the electric company, your electric company, has the money to pay for their own. That doesn't need to be financed. So in general, I would recommend to you that you take the third option, and that is go out for an RFP, check with the world around you what the potential are for getting these meters replaced, and take your time. Don't try to do it in 14 days, because in my opinion, 14 days will shortchange you on the information that you need. There may be 2 rounds that you have to have. So please take your time and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Anyone else like to address the commission?
Good morning. It's nice to see you all again. It's been like ages. Carol Wheeler, Corbett Street, speaking on behalf of the dog park, the anonymous dog park. I just thought I'd bring you up to date, and I didn't time this, so I'll just hurry through. The numbers for January, I gave you numbers for December, that was the first 20 days. The numbers for January, there were 474 dog visitors, and 70 additional dogs were registered. And I stopped by yesterday to clean the poop stations, and I registered 4 more dogs. I mean, we're not monitoring every day, but what we did was leave a little, hopefully weatherproof, clipboard for people to leave their comments with a note. Please let us know you were here and what your thoughts are. And one of them just jumped out at me and said, I really never thought this would be true. One gentleman wrote, I don't know, he had 2 dogs, and he said, a great place. I'm a tourist, and this is the best place I could find to spend my tourist dollars. He wrote that right down on there. So, and yesterday, these 4 people that were there, because some of them had 3 dogs, Michigan, Santa Fe, and Virginia, and Madrid. So we know that people are truly enjoying the park. And we are still there, somebody's there almost every day, cleaning and checking and visiting and updating the sign-ins. We held our last meeting on February 3rd, and we came up with 4 items that we would like to talk to the city about. That was a Thursday. On Friday, I made up our minutes with our 4 items, and Monday morning, I got a call, and one of the items has already been addressed. So that leaves 3 items that we would like to address with the city. We had thought of installing some fancy water faucets. The fanciest would be about $4,000 a piece for 3 water. We decided we didn't want to do that, so I found some bubblers for about $1,000 a piece. And we decided 1 water faucet, just a pipe with a faucet on the outside of the gate, so that anyone, even people walking dogs that aren't in the dog park, can have water, because our hot season is coming up, and we are hauling we probably have 8 gallons water bottles. And the last one is ground maintenance, but I'm going to leave this for you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol.
Hi, Steve Zeski, 1019 Parway. Got a couple comments just from last week. I know you tabled the exclusivity thing that Verizon wants for the water tower down here for the improved Wi-Fi communications and whatever downtown. And I understand the problem, because when I bought my house here, I had to go on the roof of her hotel 6 years ago to make phone calls, because I had AT&T back at the time. So I understand the problem, but I also understand that exclusivity is the enemy of competition. So I had a buddy of mine from Cincinnati, spent a week here, second week in January. He had AT&T. I had a niece who's been accepted up in Albuquerque and Tempe and down in Crusade. She was in looking at colleges. Third week, neither of these people, she had Sprint, he had AT&T, neither of these people could get any Wi-Fi at my house over on Parway, and I'm not even downtown. So as nice as Verizon wants to play with all you guys, exclusivity is not going to do anything for all the tourists rolling into town that got Boost and Sprint and AT&T. It's a big tower up there. I know they probably want to give you guys money for improving the service downtown, but ain't going to do anything. You know, this is a tourist town. Ain't going to do anything for everybody that rolls through town that doesn't have Verizon. Also, I mentioned this to Sonia. I used to own rental properties in 5 suburbs back in Chicago, and I appreciate her efforts on narrowing down the delinquent bills, but your late fees are way too low. I looked at my bill, it was $151. The late fee was like $3. You know, most of the suburbs, and where I had to pay water for the rental properties back east, late fee is $20 plus a percentage, okay? $250 or whatever you're charging for late fees, that ain't even enough for the bookwork, okay? You know, when I was landlording, you know, my late fees for rent were $10 in the 80s and $20 in the 90s and $30 in the 2000s and then $40 as I was selling them, because your late fees got to be high enough to get people's attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else like to address the commission? Ron?
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Ron Pecroy, TRC. In reference to YESCO, item H1, the city has been diddling with this project for about 3 years.
Steve, Mr. Witter, please no cross conversations. Sorry to interrupt you.
My time.
Go ahead.
This operation, okay, for 3 years. It's such a great opportunity, and why has it taken so long to make a decision? Let's see. And I've lost my thought, my train here.
Excuse me, can we reset the clock for
Thank
Mr.
you.
That's what we did.
If this is such a great opportunity, why is it taking so long to decide? It's been back and forth between the Public Utility Advisory Board and the City Commissioners and a joint meeting with all three, and still no decision. In the minutes of November 20th of the Public Utility Advisory Board did not recommend the proposal of YESCO to be sent back to the City Commissioners. If you all buy into this YESCO project, I have a concern about Tyler's billing system being able to handle the data. Their track record is not that good. It took them about a year to cut the system into with a lot of snafus. Their budget billing has a lot to be desired. Does not work like any other budget billing that I've been involved with over the years. And if any of you commissioners are interested, I would show you what I mean. They could not put my electric bill on the same bill as my other bill, so I get two utility bills, one for electric and one for all the other ones. If you go forward with YESCO, how about a beta test site for the electric meter? Let's say the people who have solar who have bi-directional meters. Can Tyler and utility also handle that data and bill it correctly? Okay, change. My last income raise was in 2015, Social Security 1.7%. We got a raise this year at 2%, which is about $20 on a $1,000 income. But Medicare went up by $24. So some people lost income. But that does not help that my car insurance went up, which does not care that my homeowner's insurance went up. That does not care that the sewer rate will go up 5% every year, which does not care that my cable bill keeps creeping up, which does not care that my property value can go up 3% every year and taxed appropriately, which does not care that the trash rate will go up 5% every year, which does not care that my supplemental insurance keeps going up, which does not care that my natural gas bill is going to go up. In my opinion, the only thing growing in this community is the city budget, not my income. Have you noticed, sad to say, how many people are showing up in the obituaries versus announcements of newborn babies? So who's going to be left to pay the bills in our community? When are the city commissioners going to have another town meeting? And just an FYI, the city chamber was once the high school, grade school band room, and the acoustics in here are horrible. How many people have come up to the podium and asked you all to speak up? And thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mayor Green, Commissioners, Mr. Fuentes, and thanks for your help yesterday, Renee. Anyway, my name is Stanley Rickert. I live on Cary Street here in TRC. I'm here to submit my findings with zoning violations from the property over there at 1715 Cary Street. I have some envelopes here. Probably, I think, the most important one is the one with the photographs showing the changes from 2008 to 2018. it's important to see the differences and the changes of stuff being brought into that property. It is probably a violation. It's not for me to decide. It's up to you to take it and do something with it. The other envelopes I'm submitting to you, they have a copy of a letter that shows the facts and findings that I have and researched. I have a testimony here from one of my neighbors, Chuck McCoy, that's in here. I have a description of the zoning district for T1 transitional district and excuse me, and the business license applications from the person over there that do not have approval or dates of approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to also read a portion of this letter to you to give you a sampling of, what I've been dealing with and what I know. So it starts out with, 4 years ago, Mr. Cale Thomas was considering the purchase of the property at 715 Cary Street in TRC. At that time, Mr. Thomas either had no idea what the zoning code was or did not know what development standards were included in that district. Mr. Thomas may have been given adverse information for the purpose of just closing the deal on the sale of said property. It's hard to say what took place at that time, but whatever happened, it is now a serious situation for Mr. Thomas. The property Mr. Thomas purchased is a residential zone district labeled T1 Transition District, albeit the intent of the T1 district is a low-density, semi-rural residential district comprised primarily of single-family frame and manufactured housing units. Also, the permitted and special uses within the T1 zone do not include any type of commercial activities or business. This means that Mr. Thomas's want of a storage compound for recreational vehicles is a violation of the zoning ordinance for residential zoning. It also means that Mr. Thomas's mechanical shop for automobiles, boats, and equipment, which has been in operation for the last 4 years, is a violation of the zoning ordinance code for T1 Transition District residential zoning. That's pretty much the start of it, but it lists a lot of other information and I think evidence that shows that the zoning over there is residential.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I appreciate it. And I'll put these in there.
Thank you. For a minute. Anybody else like to address the commission? Seeing none, thank you very much for your comments. We will move on to response to the public comments. Are there any responses from any of the commissioners or Manager Fuentes?
Mr. Mayor, I do have
Yes.
a response, and I'd like to respond to both Mr. Fenn and Klaus Witter. I think with regards to Mr. Witter, I think we're not too far off with your thoughts, sir, and I think that will be discussed during that item. I think, Mr. Fenn, if you stayed long enough, rather than leaving right after public response to public comment, I think you will be enlightened in the information that you'll be receiving. So if you stick around, I think it will be beneficial to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have two comments. One addressed to Mr. Fenn. To insinuate that the city manager might be receiving something because he has been involved with the ESCO project for many, many years, I think is absolutely reprehensible and way beneath the quality of individual I'd like to think that you are. I'd like you to think your thoughts again before you speak like that. Also, Ms. Wheeler, if the people who are signing at the dog park, if they have addresses and emails, if you feel comfortable, if you would ask them, if they can be turned into the city clerk, because I'm quite sure this commission would like to send them a little note appreciating them coming into our community, or an email to that effect, if that is something that works into the dog park and your volunteers, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to cross-market and once again reinforce our community to our guests as well. Thank you very much. The next item is number E, presentations. Number 1, presentation of the water harvesting drainage pilot project, Commissioner Joshua Frankel. Just to give you some little background real quick, this started under Mayor Mulcahy back, I think, in maybe 2012, 2013. Then we had some other financial issues that we had to direct limited resources to, And then when Commissioner Frankel came on board, this was something that he expressed an interest in developing and seeing where we could go with it. And therefore, I think some of his work is going to be talked about right now. Commissioner Frankel.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, fellow commissioners, City Manager. So as Mayor said, this project was started back around 2012 when the city commissioned this stormwater harvesting report from Van Clothier out of Silver City. And it's in your packet there. You'll see it's page 1 on your packet. Van Clothier is a water genius. He's done work all throughout the Southwest in cities like Sedona and Silver City, finding creative uses for communities to store and use their water. So we had the ability to bring him here and spend a lot of time going through our town looking at our community and where our drainage problems and our erosion problems and our potential for water retention could exist. Some of our major problems, as you know, exist on Broadway between Bullocks and Mims, Pershing. Those areas are subject to heavy flooding and the need for sandbagging in there during our heaviest rains and storms. If you could please turn to page 14 of the water report. Going through this report, there are lots of projects that could be done, but the ones that I found to be the most affordable and would have the biggest impact on the bottom of this one here was going to be along Foch Street Hill. Along Foch Street Hill, if you can move over to slide 15 as well. Foch Street Hill in the past had a series of retaining ponds that were already created, funded, built. They were in place. These drainage ponds had overgrown their usefulness and that they had become filled in with sediment, and they had no longer have ways for water to access these storage basins. This resulted in thousands of gallons of water coming down Foch Street and piling up there at the intersection of Broadway and Foch. The solution to these problems were very simple, in that we needed to access these drainage ponds. Now, that was going to result in two things. For this pond that we're looking at, for example, in the past, this is a small city park that needed to be watered. With the system that we put in place now, it collects rainwater, stores that water, releases it at a slow rate, and this should be a very beautiful green space in the city that won't require the use of city water. Page 20, please. You can see on a busy flooded day in downtown Truth or Consequences, this isn't a super heavy runoff day, this would be an average rain. You can see that this drainage pond is no longer functioning the way it should. There's a drain pipe and it's spilling out the water, and the holding pond is not being used to its full capacity. 29, please. On page 29, this is an example of what we intended to do. It's a curb cut, and what we do is we go in and we angrily cut the curb in a way that will allow the water to flow into the storage basins. Now, the great opportunity that we had is that Van Clothier was very excited to come and work with our community and to be able to highlight that as one of his success projects in the Southwest. So we were fortunate enough to sign contract with him in 2016 and bring him on board for a pilot project on Foch Street that would do two things. It would immediately mitigate some of the drainage problems we have on Foch Street, Broadway, and Main, and it would also train our staff on how to be able to go back out and perform these curb cuts throughout our community. So we were going to be a man taught to fish. We would not have to rely on Van Clothier to come to town to teach us how to do this. If we could move to my slides, please. This is myself and Van Clothier. He's here in November to scope out the project, did some laser sighting for where the water would go, put in some marks of where we would be working with the streets department in December of 2017. Next slide, please. This is the streets department hard at work at the first day of curb cutting. Like I said, this is a training process that enabled our street and road department to acquire a new skill from a master of water harvesting. Next slide, please. Next slide. So along this stretch of road here, you can see that there are basins. This is going down off of Foch Street Hill. There's a series of basins on the left-hand side of the road with no real way to get water into those basins. So we opened up an access point to get water into those basins, and then what we did is we opened up paths between each basin so the water can flow from the top to the next basin to the next basin, storing thousands and thousands of gallons of water that can slowly seep back into the ground. This area should all develop full of natural mesquite, bird of paradise, ice plant, all not on the city's dime. This will all be native species or relocated to the Southwest species in the last 100 years. And it should really beautify that section of Foch Street. Next slide, please. Here's our city working on the second road cut up the street. Now, we had a few gray skies that day, and we thought we might get to see some of the fruits of our labor, but the skies stayed dry. They stayed dry for almost 80 or 90 days. So we were fairly confident on how this was going to work, but we didn't see the water flowing. Next slide, please. Keep it going. One more time. One more. I just like them so much because they're such a great crew. I just took a bunch of pictures of them. Here's Van Clothier's work truck in town. So if you ever see that sign around town, it's the sign of two hands collecting water out of the mountains. Next slide. Here they are performing the actual cut. In addition to this drain cut, because this pond had become so overgrown and overfilled, what they did was cut a section of the park away, fill it in with really thick boulder, setting up a drainage pond. Then they took the lower level of the pond and removed several feet of sediment, thus allowing the pond to be able to hold and retain the water that it needs to and release it at a much slower rate. Next slide, please. Here's looking up the hill at the amount of water that you'd have coming down on any given day during a rainstorm. Next slide, please. Here's an example of one of the curb cuts that has been finished. It goes into one of the city's holding ponds there on the right-hand side of Foch Street. You can see not only has the curbing cut, but the concrete has been ground down at an angle as to force the water into that retaining pond. Next slide, please. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. So the curb has been cut at an angle, and then the concrete has been ground down. These are tools that the city has, and these are now tools that these are skills that the city employees now have. Next slide, please. We're starting to get lucky because it's getting grayer, so we're going to get to see some water in action, and that's what happened. Thankfully, last Friday, we were blessed with a nice rain shower, and we got a chance to see this pilot project in action. Next slide, please. So here we are with some of the water coming down the hill. It's starting to move its way. You can see just above the cut the wet cement, and just below the cut, it's dry at this time. Of course, all the water's not going to go into this cut. As we get a heavy rainstorm, it will help mitigate the problem, but enough water would overrun this cut. This is an example of one solution that can be put into place. Next slide, please. So here's water starting to fill up the upper basin above Filosa's office. In the past, water would just flow off the hill to the west. Now we're collecting water from all of Thote Street. Next slide, please. Here's the pond just beginning to fill up from its drainage ditch. That's not a deep channel of water. It's very shallow. It goes down underground then later on and collects down at the pond at the far end. Next slide. There's the retaining pond at the corner of Thote and Main, just beginning to fill last Friday. And this is all water that would have ended up downtown. Next slide, please. And this is the second curb cut going on right near the corner that allows water to flow into those large holding ponds that I had discussed. You can see the angle of the cut. It's made at about a 45-degree angle to really allow that water to move its way into the holding pond. Next slide, please. There I am. We got a rainy day. I'm ready for it. I hooded up and went out. Shoot to the next slide. We don't have to see that guy for too long. Here we are. I know the next presentation on payroll is going to be pretty exciting, but I'm trying to keep up here. So, just trying to keep you all amused before the good stuff comes here. Okay. We got water flowing in town. People's gardens are getting wet. Roofs are leaking. It's a double-edged sword in town. We have water. So I was very excited. I started receiving photographs from our entire community, which is a real blessing. I received from the streets department. I received letters pictures from fellow commissioners. I got an email from Sophie Perone, said, "Wait, use this water report." So I really felt that I had a lot of support throughout the whole community for this project from all sides. Next slide, please. Here's the pond holding water as it should. The depth of the water is about 2 to 3 feet deeper than it was. It's not a dangerous depth of water. But what's going on right now is this pond has collected both silt and runoff and water from Thote Street that you'd often see running down Main Street. And what it's going to do is, as this pond holds and retains this water, it's going to release it from a side release point that I'll show you in a minute. And that's going to be released at a much slower rate. And so that slower rate of release for this pond does two things. It allows the water to seep into the ground at its natural rate, and then does release water down eventually into the Rio Grande, into the downtown, but not at a rate that results in the need to sandbag or to wash water up onto people's businesses. It's just a small movement of water. Next slide, please. Here's the pond at full capacity. This is a photograph that was sent to me by a local resident. Next slide, please. Once again, that pond, just a little bit different angle. Next slide, please. You can see the depth of that pond. I kind of used that sign on the left-hand side as a meter to the degree of it. The pond would never get deeper than that because of the way that it is set up. So unless we were to dig it down and set up a little bit differently, that's probably maximum storage capacity for this size pond. Next slide, please. There it is after the rain, retaining water. This pile of water would usually be sitting in front of Thote and Main. Next slide, please. There's the water being released at a reasonable rate. This water would be released for about the next 24 hours before it would have been seeped back in the ground and released. And you can see the level of the water that's being released is significantly less than the amount of water that would usually be coming down Thote Street. Next slide, please. And to close out my presentation, there's myself and Van, and we are very happy. We consider this pilot project a success. It's one of very, very many projects in this great water report that covers all kinds of neighborhoods: 2nd Street, Lincoln Street, Garst, Main, Second, if you've seen a bad spot around town when it's rained and flood that has dirt coming down a driveway or uncontrolled flooding, we've probably addressed it in this report. And I would just really encourage this commission going forward to keep on working on projects out of this book and to continue to train our staff. I want to commend our street department on a very fine job done, and congratulations on those new skills earned. And I want to thank Van Clothier and Street and Dynamics for coming into our community and helping us make a more sustainable, water respectful community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Penzel. Are there any questions from the commission?
Great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and thank you very much for raising your hand and volunteering to kind of put the bit in your teeth and run with this one. It's really absolutely incredibly important, and it affects so many of our businesses and our homes. So thank you very much for your
Thank you,
efforts.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro
Appreciate
Tem.
it. Okay, the next one is a presentation related to the HR and payroll program operations. We have two wonderful presenters, Paige Best from payroll and Becky Rodriguez from human resources.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor, and Mr. Fuentes. I'm Becky. I'm the HR analyst for the City of Truth and Consequences. I've been with the city 10 years. We are excited to share our presentation with you of where we were, where we are presently, and where we want to go in the future.
Good morning. I'm Paige Best. I run payroll for the city. I've been here for 19 months now. I did want to note that prior to my tenure with the city, we had seen 5 employees in this position in the previous 4 years.
And also in the past 5 years, we've had 4 changes in our management in our department.
Okay, so we'll get started with our past.
Okay, we used to have the ADG software, and it was geared for our accounting and our payroll system. There was no HR module in that system. So the on-hiring, new hire process was that it was all entered by payroll. So that meant that on onboarding on any new hire, I had to do double paperwork, print double pages, and give it to that payroll person.
On the payroll side, with this outdated software, every step of the process had to be printed. It was required, because once that update was performed in that process, everything was lost. So a lot of paperwork was involved to store all and keep records of all of that, because it was no longer available in the software once that update was performed.
And one other thing that I would like to add to that is that we also did paper timesheets. So paper timesheets plus all the paperwork that had to be printed was enormous. We were killing lots of trees. On the human resource side, there was, with a few directors that had the HR experience, that the training and the assistance was limited. What I did was I was self-taught. I would use webinars, newsletters, and other items found online. There was limited backup. When I was out ill, the program seemed to cease. So one of the other challenges was that HR was located in one location, and the finance and the accounting was at another location. So that was a challenge that was for that program. And then there was lack of feedback from the back and forth from the team.
On payroll, with the ADG system, again, with the paperwork, and once that was transitioned to Tyler, which was prior to my tenure with the city, there was a lot of inconsistency. When I would go back to research, I would find that there hadn't been a lot of structure in the payroll process. There were some inconsistent procedures that were being practiced, a lot of errors that I encountered, such as staff being omitted from payroll runs, monthly reports not being filed for state taxes, workers' comp, taxes paid late or inconsistently, which caused, penalties and a lot of issues in that respect. Some supplemental insurances have been canceled for non-payment, so those were overlooked. In addition, time entry procedures change frequently from person to person, and even by the time I came on with Tyler in place for close to a year, people were confused about how to enter their time, how to enter their overtime, how to enter their leave. So a lot of instability with those procedures. There wasn't a lot of cross-training. If payroll was unavailable, it's similar to HR, everything stopped. And that's just not, something that's positive for a program such as this.
Okay. Benefits were entered or enrolled by the payroll. So all of the payroll entered the benefits, they enrolled them, they gave them the offer, they put them on the computer, they submitted the payments. So this procedure resulted in an audit finding because there was no dual control. So that was changed now, but we'll go into that in our present. Communication and outreach, we discussed, there was personnel changes that took place that was, HR was limited in being inputted on some issues that happened in the HR. Our hiring process, although we followed our policy, our interview process lacked structure and lacked an implementation of how the procedure for interview. Our development for training staff was limited. We did have safety training that was mandatory, but information for open enrollment and those type of things were sometimes not filtered down to all of our staff. The payrolls through the ADG, we printed and notice of deposits, and they were printed the paychecks. So we would put flyers into the packets or the envelopes at that time with information about open enrollment, information on flyers or stuff that was going on. However, we had limited feedback on that procedure. Our policies, we at one time had a policy committee, which, through the last 5 years, they were kind of sporadic. So, as you know, our policies were last updated in 2011, and because of the turnover in our staff, in our management, in our team, that kind of went back and forth, and so we're at a place that we need to rewrite and update our policies. Job descriptions had not been done consistently by our directors, even though when we had a position open, they were given, but feedback from the directors on what duties and responsibilities changed were not consistent. And sometimes that job descriptions weren't updated because there was not a person in that position. I'm going to use the airport manager position. We had an airport manager in there for 11 years. When he retired, then that position was handled by senior staff until we rewrote a job description and put a person in that position. We also had lots of job descriptions in some departments that, 10 or 12 when there's a staff of 11 or 6. Why did we have so many job descriptions? It was because sometimes the positions changed. And for example, in our waste and wastewater department, they were so many different jobs, and when I asked some senior staff, why do we have, what are the requirements in these positions? Well, we do everything. So it's kind of disheartening when you hear that kind of comment.
at that time, evaluations were all prepped by Human Resources. She actually personalized every single form to the employee, so a lot of research was involved with hire dates and position titles, and then she would print those manually to present to department heads for them to fill out. So that was very time consuming, and they were filled out by hand. Everything handwritten. Sometimes it was illegible. You couldn't read what was being said, so if you had to reference that later, it was difficult to see what had been said. In addition, disciplinary action was also filled out by hand. Forms had just check boxes, not a lot of opportunity to leave comments or recommendations for staff improvement.
Okay. Our workman's comp, we had a safety officer, and so our managers, our supervisors got real comfortable with letting our safety officer handle all the workman's comp claims, all the incidents and everything. And when our safety officer retired, then there was kind of a lapse. And so as HR, I picked up filling out all the workman's comp paperwork. And there was times that HR wasn't informed of incidents or incidents that happened.
Okay, so moving on from that, we'll go to the present.
As you know, we inquired the Tyler Encode, and I think that was a very positive direction for the payroll and the HR module. And I want to thank the commissioners for backing that, and for Mr. Fuentes, city manager, for implementing the process and bringing that to us. The HR module will allow record keeping for, it has the capability to store information such as certificates, training, testing, education, reviews, grievance procedure, grievances, workman's comps, and even the equipment that's issued to employees.
And the nice thing about it is that Tyler stores all that information on secure servers off-site. So any, God forbid, any kind of system failure on our part, we wouldn't lose all of our information. It's all stored for us. And digitally, again, saves a lot of paper. So we're not keeping all that paper stored. As you recall, we had some issues with the roof in the file room, and a lot of stuff got wet when that came through. So that eventuality would never occur when you're storing things digitally off-site. The other nice thing about Tyler, which, can I say, when I came in, I was so impressed by the software after my previous position, the way payroll was run. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. So again, I'm going to echo Becky's thanks for getting that in there for us. But all of our reports and registers, once the process is complete, you can still access those. So the only things we actually print are items that require approval by a third party before I can proceed with the process. So we've gone from, this big massive payroll packet to, less paper that we're actually keeping on site. And then anything else can be retrieved from the system at any time back to when the first payroll was run in this software.
Human Resources, we've, in the last 18 months or last year, we've attended numerous training, seminars, and workshops. It included the Clerks Academy, the HR training, which was fantastic. It was really an eye-opener and gave us a lot of tools that we want to implement. We really learned that other cities, other HR have a lot of the same similar issues, problems, so that was refreshing to actually make contact with some resources. We also attended the New Mexico State New Mexico Self-Insured Fund, Safety Council, and the Safety Coordinator training, which you think, oh, that has to do with safety officer. Well, taking this training really opened our eyes that, no, there's very limited stuff that the safety officer needs to be doing, and it's more geared for management.
In addition to those trainings, we've both attended alternative dispute resolution training, which is fantastic, for conflict resolution in-house. In addition, I've taken a mediator training with the state through General Services, where I'm a certified mediator and can kind of assist our staff if we're having issues. One of the huge benefits to that is it has the potential to reduce turnover, has the potential to reduce issues in the event of a termination. If we've gone through all of our due diligence and can handle things in-house, then it's just a benefit to our agency, to our departments, to our individual team members, so that they can, be happy in their workplace. We have brought in some presenters to do seminars for our staff regarding organization. We've collaborated with other agencies to let them come in and sit in. We actually get a free training every year from the state. The GSD has a contract with the Solutions Group, who also provides our employee assistance program. And so they can come in and do those trainings for us. Organization, we did a wonderful diversity in the workplace training, which is, I think, very important in our community. And we had a really great turnout for those presentations.
And we want to continue with taking webinars and training for ourselves relevant to our positions, and also to continue to give training for our supervisors, our managers, our directors.
Another benefit to our current state of affairs in HR and payroll is we have a great team support for staff in the event that, HR or myself has to be out of the office. There are people there to keep things running. So nothing shuts, nothing stops. These programs just can't stop if someone is out sick or has an issue with family or what have you. So things keep moving, and we have a lot of great support on our team for that.
One of the things that I want to mention that I failed to mention before was that HR and payroll were moved from the prior location to be centralized with the finance and the procurement and accounting, so that we are all as under one roof, and that has been a great benefit for the program for HR and payroll. We've implemented a new structure in our interview process. We now have a facilitator. We have a script that is followed through our interview process, and each department will submit benchmark and behavioral questions, and they're reviewed and they're formatted in a way that we receive assistance from, and they're approved by the HR and the team. We've also implemented a new personal action request form for new hires that gives the opportunity for the directors to give us a justification for that new hire.
That provides a lot more structure during the process, having that justification. The nice thing about that PAR form is it's now on a fillable Word document. We've transitioned that from a handwritten form again to a fillable form. So those are sent out to directors and managers, and they just fill them out right on a computer and then print them for approval.
Onboarding process has changed a little bit. Now I prepare packets for the new hire, and when they come in, and during the pre-employment screening, I include a welcome letter to them and all the paperwork, the para enrollment benefit information, so that when they come back with that paperwork and doing the onboarding, it takes 15 to 20 minutes as opposed to before it took an hour to an hour and a half. So that's really saved a lot of time.
We've also implemented overall finance department training for new staff, especially administrative staff and managerial staff. It's kind of a concentrated mini training in addition to their onboarding to go over ESS, which is our employee self-service through Tyler, timesheets, approvals, leave. We discuss para hours, how those are reported. We discuss overtime, how that's calculated, because there used to be a lot of confusion about how overtime was calculated. And also HR covers policies a little more in-depth than during the onboarding process. So it gives them just a little bit of a broader view. She has a wonderful letter that kind of covers all of the training we do. We sign it, we keep it on file, and provide them any paperwork or reference documentation they might need.
Okay. Our exiting procedure has changed. We now have a checklist that the management would fill out when keys are turned in, and it's signed off by the employee, so that any uniforms that need to be turned in or purchased or they're kept or whatever, it's all done on that paperwork, and puts that responsibility back on the directors and the supervisors.
Also, as part of our new exit procedures, we terminate para employees, and I use terminate for any end of employment, including retirement, in the system. We no longer fax in forms, email, sometimes in these days that's a little outdated, so the para has a new procedure where when submitting that report, it's possible to terminate them in the system. And that, one benefit to that is that it speeds up the process for especially retirement, for them to start receiving their benefits a little more quickly. So payroll, some of the current state of the payroll program. We have implemented a really great checklist, which is pretty massive, to go through every single step of the process. And the primary reason for this is to omit those previous issues where steps were missed or employees weren't paid. Anytime there's any kind of issue encountered, a glitch with the system, which is wonderful, it does have some glitches, it's a computer system. So we implement a new step into that list to ensure a final paycheck is paper rather than direct deposit, to ensure delayed comp is provided for our leaving or departing employees. And so there's a checklist that's set for every single step of the process, including approvals, to show that those approvals have been obtained to proceed to the next part of the process. And so that goes with every payroll packet, and that ensures that we're consistent. We also file all of our reports online, monthly and quarterly. I keep a spreadsheet to track all of my online payments, all of my paper payments, every payable, every dollar that goes out the door for all of our supplemental insurances, our state taxes, our workers' comp. So that's all tracked primarily to ensure amounts are correct for reconciliation, and also that no payments were missed. So time entry procedures have been solidified. We have better processes, and anytime we have a change, like recently with the new Tyler update, we had to change the way we do our holidays. So we present that to our directors and make sure that they're letting their staff know about those new procedures. We send up email follow-ups to ensure that everything's being done correctly when our timesheets are entered to save time and make the payroll process go smoother. We also, during our new employee orientation that we'll talk about, cover that with all new staff and let them know how to enter their time correctly so that they're paid correctly. And finally, we've updated our sick leave donation process. We have a new process for that. It's a little more structured, where directors submit their request to payroll, and I do research on that staff member and their leave usage and submit to Mr. Fuentes for approval, and then we send it out to directors if that's approved. And we have wonderful, wonderful staff members who are always willing to donate their time for employees who have issues, so that's awesome.
Our benefits, we've changed our benefit enrollment is now done through HR, so that, and then I would notify payroll when they are confirmed with those benefits that they are entered onto the payroll side for the deduction. So this process satisfies the due control requirements that we found as an audit finding. We also have a new procedure from RISA on our COBRA process. Instead of filling out the paperwork, putting it in the mail, it's now done electronically. So that way, when she gets the bill for our benefits, that it is already with the correct amounts. Our communication with the new procedures that we have implemented, they are reinforced and followed by HR and our director.
We also try to keep our communication flowing, stay in contact with our staff on any changes, any upcoming items such as payroll, holidays, things that need to be done differently. We utilize Tyler, again, with this fantastic announcement feature on the employee self-service webpage where staff goes to enter their time. It has a place for useful links. We put links on there they can go straight to their benefits. They can go straight to an IRS webpage that lets them know what they should be putting on their W-4. We have links that go to the Employee Assistance Program, through ERISA. We have documents we can put on there. They can download during open enrollment. They can download their form and straight from there to fill out and submit to HR if they want to make any changes during open enrollment. And then announcements. And anybody can access those. Anybody with approval can access those to leave announcements for their staff, for the entire agency. So it's a really, really cool feature that we have in our timesheet webpage.
Okay. Directors have more accountability for their management duties, such as discipline, evaluations, and staff timesheets. The discipline form has changed so that it is not just a checkbox, it is actually recommendations on what the issues were and a solution. And it is all on a work spreadsheet, on a fillable form. And I want to thank Paige at this time because she is very versed in creating those fillable forms. And evaluations are now structured. We gave training for our managers and our supervisors on how evaluation process is to be done, and it is now on a fillable form that they have the responsibility of filling them out. I just have to send them a reminder per our policy that evaluations are done on an annual basis, and we want to try to implement further evaluations in the future. Our staff outreach and communication, we provide internal customer service, and we practice an open door policy. We want to be available to our staff for questions, issues, assistance, conflict and benefit information at any time that any staff member has a question.
And as we mentioned earlier, we do implement our new employee orientation. We have that quarterly. We think it's a great opportunity to welcome our new staff to the agency, introduce them to our team, and whichever commissioners we can rope into coming to speak with them. And as City Manager Fuentes, it's really a neat thing to have that introduction, and it kind of makes them feel like they're actually part of our family, which is what we are. So we really enjoy doing that. It's a great opportunity to give a little training on customer service and what we expect and what that means. We talk about our policies. We talk about our payroll. We talk about their duties as employees of the city, of all of our citizens, and so that's something. And if you aren't coming to speak, we would love to even have you just come watch the next time we have one next month. Okay.
Policies, we implemented an outreach so that policies were sent one policy at a time to the departments for them to review with their staff and assign in that policy was reviewed at that time and sent back to HR, and then follow up with the next process of the next policy, so that refreshers of the policies are being updated, especially for our older staff members that sometimes don't always follow or know what our policies are. I should say. Remember, when they receive their packet at new hire, I would venture to say that 90% probably do not turn the page.
In addition to all the other communication, we've implemented a motivational tip that we send out to staff. We have some geared toward employees. We have some geared toward management. And we try to do this a couple of times a month. We've been hitting them hard with evaluation stuff this month. They talk about organization, taking initiative, what it means to be a part of a team, their duty as a coworker, and for older staff as mentors, and for people who can pass on that information and that knowledge that they've obtained to younger staff members. We get a lot of really good feedback about it. I'm always pleased when a director comes in and mentions that, something about the tip that I sent them last week, or someone shoots an email. And we'd love to send it to you guys too if you're interested, so you can see what we're talking about with our staff.
And Paige has already touched base on our announcements on our ESS system. The other link that it has is access to the PERA link that talks about the packet and what the PERA, Public Employers Retirement Plan, is all about.
And they can actually access the entire handbook there as well.
Okay. And policies are Our job descriptions have changed. The format of our job descriptions have changed. Whenever a position opens, it is sent to the director for review for the duties and responsibilities, and as HR, it will be whatever the requirements of that position are there, and that they are all implemented in that new job description. Because the directors and the managers know what the job's responsibilities and requirements are, and we would just look for consistency and to ensure that job descriptions cover all the bases. Job descriptions are a living document, and they should be updated regularly. And the input from the directors and managers is vital.
And then, again, with the consistency, we maintain consistency with all of these new procedures and making sure everyone's using the same format. Everything's fillable. We've updated that, as Becky mentioned earlier. It makes it a little less painful for those directors to fill out all those forms if they can do it right on the computer.
And pay increases are done on a payroll change form, which was implemented by our city manager, Mr. Fuentes, and that justifies any payroll increases. Workman's comp, now I handle all of the reporting of workman's comp and the information of incidents, and I'm working with the safety officer on when there is an issue. There's more consistency, so I get the submit the paperwork and do the follow-up on our workman's comp.
Okay, we're going to move into what the future looks like, we hope, for our department.
Okay. The HR module that we have on the Tyler system, because it was not on the ADG, so when it was, all the information was brought forward from the ADG, there was no information to put in for the HR module. So we signed up for implementing HR module training, and this will give us the capability to put the HR module into place and update it.
So once we get that all set up and start utilizing it, we'll be able to scan all that information that Becky mentioned right into their profiles, any certifications they receive, any training that they attend, any disciplinary action. As we mentioned, any equipment that they're issued, we can track it in there, and we'll have the capability of scanning any documents, their driver's license, their personal information, and storing it in that secure server that we mentioned, so it's not in a paper file.
And one of the things that we would like to see in the future is possibly having scanners at our desk. We have one central scanner that is utilized by the entire staff, and sometimes you're waiting in line. So, yes. And certification within our HR program would allow us to grow and to better improve our customer service to our city staff. I would like to obtain the HR certification through the SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management.
And at the same time, I'm looking at the American Payroll Association's Certified Payroll Professional Certification. They're testing in the fall for that, so I'll be looking into doing some preparation for that so I can obtain the certification.
And we wanted to continue to provide more management training for our supervisory staff, both with webinars and bringing in presenters here, excuse me.
In addition, we're going to cross-train within our department a little bit more. I'll be presenting a payroll training to our finance department staff, and that will help, again, with that consistency so the program doesn't stop just in case. We've all been battling the flu the last couple months, I know, and it has I think I took my first sick days ever in the last 19 months a couple of weeks ago. So that would ensure that, you know, we can stay home if we're sick, and then somebody else can pick up the ball and run with it for a little bit.
We're looking at our employee application. We want the option to do a fillable form and have it available online, so that the capabilities of emailing applications to the HR.
The other nice thing about that is that they'll be more legible, again, with the fillable forms. It's just the way to go. In the future, another thing we'd like to utilize is issuing an employee ID for staff, a badge. And initially, we'd like to issue this to field staff so they have something official if they encounter any issues with people wondering why they're in their yard, you know, doing their meter checks and whatnot. So that's something we would really like to begin implementing, look into how we're going to do that, and then maybe expand to the rest of the staff.
One of the things we want to do in the future is hold a benefit fair. Our supplement providers currently come and say, well, we want to, you know, reach out to your staff about our enrollment for Aflac and Allstate, and we want to have a fair where we can bring in Aflac, Allstate, Washington National, Legal Shield, Globe, Nationwide, and the retirement solution. So that's something that we want to work towards, so that I think that would benefit our staff, because they would get all the information about the different programs and decide, you know, which life insurance policy they might supplement for, cancer policy, accident policies, etc.
Payroll, future of payroll, again, with cross-training, we're looking to expand that knowledge and provide tools for everyone in the department to be able to share that knowledge. The Encode, Tyler Encode, I'm preaching, I know, over and over, but it is just such a fantastic system, and I don't think it's being utilized to its full potential. So we're looking at really giving everyone a little more knowledge about that. Payables tracking, that's one thing that is a little more involved. You know, that's probably 90% of what I actually do in payroll. So we're gonna teach a little bit more about that, just in case someone needs to pick that up and run with it for me. And for our communication, oh, skip benefits. No, I have that right here. So our communication in the future, we're looking at implementing an alternative dispute resolution policy, which is actually something that state statute is requiring of agencies such as ours, and that's one reason we attended the trainings we did. So once we are able to get that implemented into policy, we'll be able to offer that conflict resolution to staff. We also have the option of obtaining outside mediation for circumstances that we just aren't capable of handling, and the state provides free mediation for those employees. It's totally third party, it's completely confidential, and that's something we would really like to utilize if we have the need. God forbid we don't need it, but if we do, that's something that will be available to us that we would like to implement.
Something we're looking forward to in the future is an employee award program. We want to maybe implement a month and supervisor of the month, also maybe a quarterly or a yearly recognition. We'd have to, of course, submit and figure out our nomination process, and incentives would be, the city manager has graciously said, administrative days of leave incentive is one of the incentives, and then giving agency-wide recognition for those employees, and then reinstate our service 10 program. And other incentives would be maybe a plaque or jacket or some kind of nominal award for recognition.
Yeah, we feel that'll boost motivation, and it's really nice for people to know that their work is appreciated and recognized. And I know Mr. Fuentes is very supportive of that. So are some of your commissioners. We really appreciate that, because that's something I think would really boost morale in our agency. In addition, we would like to institute a staff newsletter eventually. This would be a great place to expand that outreach to our staff, to discuss new employees that have come on board, retirements, you know, to say farewell to some of our staff. We're losing Linda today, so that would be a great opportunity to thank her for all her years of service and let everybody know what's going on. We could discuss events that we're holding, orientations that we're planning, non-safety trainings that we're holding, any of those developmental trainings we talked about. That would be a great way to announce, because again, we still have some issues these days with information filtering down to the staff. So we're looking for new ways to get that information to them. Those motivational tips, we would include some of those. We would talk about our award program and who's receiving those Employee of the Month awards. and what kind of perks they got, and maybe encourage other people to step up and try to take on a bigger role in their department so they can get that recognition as well. And so that's just something we're constantly doing, is looking for ways to communicate better.
Our policies are living documents and should be updated annually at least. We would like to form a policy committee possibly to ensure that policies are updated, and we want to reformat our policies. As you know, our policies have to be approved by the commission, and we're looking at maybe reformatting so that we separate policies from procedures, so that policies that need to be approved by commissioners and then procedures would just need the approval of the city manager. That's something we're looking at to working with the group.
So workers' comp, our last item, finally. Sorry if anyone's dozing off back there. We're working with our safety officer, Jamie Sweeney, and we're working out of the PD on bringing that self-insurance fund safety counseling training that Becky talked about. It's a safety coordinator training. However, it's a wonderful tool for management to further understand their role in their department safety, not only of their employees with training, but in securing their facilities and reducing our liability. And so that's something that we're really excited to bring in and have all of our management go through that training.
Yeah, they need to understand the importance of that training and the facilities and the grounds that and keeping it all updated and safe for our employees.
So we'd like to close by just recognizing that any accomplishments we've achieved in the last 19 months, 20 months in these programs is completely due to the support of our finance director, Melissa Torres, and our city manager, Mr. Fuentes. They've just given us the tools we need to make these changes, these improvements, to continue. There's always a better way to do things, and that's what we're constantly trying to do, so we really appreciate that.
Keep going.
I totally talked over Becky, so my apologies. I got a little excited there. But it really is, it's a wonderful thing to have support from your superiors, from your management, and, you know, like I mentioned, they put all the kudos onto us, but it's really onto them, and again, to extend to the commission for your support in all of this. So would you have any questions for us, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Fuentes?
Thank you. Commissioner Clark?
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, as soon as you bring up Tyler, it brings back a whole kind of paradigm, right?
I can imagine.
So it's nice to hear that you like Tyler. I know we went through a monumental mess trying to install it into the city, and the utility department, you got the hottest iron, of course. Hopefully it's working out for you now. It says an awful lot to see you two up here working together. And I really, really appreciate hearing that and seeing the hard work that you put into this presentation. It also says an awful lot for the finance director, and I wanted to thank you, Melissa. You're doing just an extraordinary job, and city manager for allowing that kind of coordination to happen. And the other thing, I'd be really curious someday just to know if, and another one of my favorite words, the cost-benefit analysis, but if having put Tyler into process and now we know what it's been able to do for us and maybe the savings that it's been able to provide based on the costs that I obviously argued with, it would be really curious to know if, in fact, it has streamlined the city's operations and actually paid itself off.
Yes, in our time management, it has really helped in that area.
Yeah, I would think so. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and I think this is great, and I hope this is the beginning. Unfortunately, I missed Sonia's presentation and her department, but I did hear it over the radio with 104-degree temperature. I don't know how much I remembered, but I think this is an awesome way to keep the commission updated on the internal workings of the boiler room, so to speak. And I think it's important that our citizens understand that we are servants of them and how we serve them and what processes and procedures we have put into place. So it's always a trickle-down theory. So thank you, Manager Fuentes, and thank you, Melissa Torres, for keeping us informed. And I hope we have this on a regular basis. Thank you. Commissioner Heschler.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to echo what Commissioner Clark said. You took about half my words. But I wanted to also thank you ladies and Ms. Fuentes for bringing us up to the modern age. I know where we were 19 months ago, and I see now where we are. So thank you for your diligence and your hard work in that regard. I also want to say a shout out to the Commission, because remember some of our goals that we made for the city and for Manager Fuentes. One of them was the Tyler system, or the utility department that we had a discussion about our last meeting, and this one was to modernize our hiring practices and our HR practices and things of that nature. So I'm glad someone is listening. Thank you for your efforts in that regard, and that's why we need to get together as a commission once in a while to set those goals for the city. So thank you guys for that.
Well said.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Any
much.
other comments? Thank you. Okay, moving on, number F, consent calendar. I will need a motion for approval of the consent calendar, which consists of number 1, City Commission regular minutes, January 24th, 2018. Number 2, Public Utility Advisory Board minutes, January 16, 2018. Number 3, Recreation Advisory Board minutes, February 5th, 2018. And number 4, Golf Course Advisory Board minutes, October 4th, 2017, and January 3rd, 2018.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as noted.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second
Mayor.
by...
Now that we have a second, last meeting when you weren't here, I pulled myself out of the January meeting, and I missed it this time. I'd like to pull myself out of the January meeting.
Okay.
Because I wasn't there. I don't feel comfortable voting on it, but I feel comfortable voting on everything else in the consent calendar.
Okay, if that is okay with everyone? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Clark. The next item, it's now, we've been in here for an hour and a half. Does anyone have to take a couple-minute break, or do you want to move forward?
I have to recuse myself from this item.
Okay. All right, so anyone else have to take a break, or let's just move forward then? Okay, so the next item is number G, ordinances, resolutions, and zoning. Number 1, discussion action, resolution number 2417/18 to abate a dangerous structure at Lot 11, Block 76 of the original township. Our 2 presenters will be Robbie Travis, our building inspector, and Susanna Diller, our planner GIS tech.
Excuse
Mayor.
me, Mayor?
Yes.
I have to recuse myself in this situation as I have a conflict of interest with the real estate deal I have going on with the adjoining property.
Okay,
Mayor, I recuse myself also.
okay, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, as I indicated in the last meeting, I have to recuse myself also since this involves property right across the front from my residence.
Okay, thank you. So,
All
floor is
right.
yours. At least you have a quorum.
Yeah. Good morning, Mayor, Manager Fuentes, remaining commissioners. So we're here to present a resolution to abate a dangerous structure at Lot 11, Block 76, original town site. Eugene Kent moved in a dangerous and unsafe structure to the property at that address. The court gave Mr. Kent 2 weeks from January 16th, 2018 to move the structure off property. He has not complied. The court issued the summons and a fine, and it was remanded back to the city. And the staff recommendation at this point is to proceed with demolition and cleanup of the structure and put a lien on the property.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I do have, and I believe the time frame for cleaning up or executing is about, what is it, 10 days? Is that a window that he has?
Yes, they have 10 days to appeal.
Okay.
To appeal the resolution.
That's correct. So, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and I was provided with a letter today dated February 28th. And I'd like to read that. It's from Eugene Daniel Kent. Read that to the Commissioners will help kind of with this matter. To the Commissioners of the City of Truth and Consequences, this letter is to inform you that I, Eugene Daniel Kent, intend to remove by way of demolition the mobile home currently located at the 200 block of North Corporal Street in Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. I have initiated the gutting of the structure, which will be followed by the removal of the walls, flooring, and framework. Estimated time of completion of demolition and removal from property 7 days from today's date. I ask that any legal action on your part be postponed until such time as previously stated. I appreciate your consideration in this matter and will do my best to abide by any and all decisions made by yourselves and any and all agents of the City of Truth. The consequences, I apologize for my absence today as I move forward with the completion of this task. And I bring this to you all's attention because I think in his letter, he stated he will do it within the timeframe that the 10 days that he has to appeal. So definitely even moving forward with the resolution, he still doesn't necessarily mean that we'll take any action immediately. But since he has on record committed that he will be removing that structure within 7 days from today's date, I think it's a win-win for him to abate that issue, and then for us to making sure that at least, if nothing else, we have the Commissioner's authorization to proceed forward if we need to. But there's no reason why for us not to believe that he's going to follow through on his commitment made today.
Okay, thank you. Concerns, questions? Stand for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 24-17-/18 to abate a dangerous structure at lot 11, block 76, original town site, as presented by City Building Inspector Rob B. Travis and Susanna Diller. And I'd also like to thank Eugene Kent for offering to have that property abated and taken care of within the time frame of this situation.
Thank you. I have a motion by
I'll
Commissioner
second that
Hessler.
motion.
I have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green,
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead,
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hessler,
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark, and Joshua Franco are recused.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll just wait till the other commissioners come in for a second, and we'll continue. I think they were so impressed by the last presentation that they're going to look for a job opening at the city level. These guys have done a wonderful job, just a wonderful job. Okay, very good.
It's chilly out there.
Okay, back to full screen. Number 2, under G, ordinance resolution zoning. Discussion action resolution number 2517/18 declaring surplus property for an auction to be held on March 17, 2018. Our presenter is Ms. Canton, Clerk Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. You have before you the resolution as we do almost quarterly for the March 17, 2000 election. I did hand out the list. We have a couple of vehicles and quite a bit of police department things to get rid of. So with that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions about the list that we have in front of us going up for auction?
I got one.
Yes, Commissioner Frank.
It's just maybe a typo, or maybe like the most valuable 3-drawer filing cabinet ever. But $50. Maybe $5. Maybe scrap metal. I mean, it's already been worn out to the point that it's no good anymore. It's a 3-drawer filing cabinet. I don't think they're $50 new. That one just kind of popped out at me.
I have no idea. I take the estimates that the departments give to me, and it doesn't mean that that's the limit that they can sell it in the auction for. We don't necessarily give them a limit unless it's like the mayor had brought up before for scrap metal and things like that. So that's not a limit, and he can't sell this cabinet unless it's $50. It's just a suggestion from the department at what they feel the value would be. Gold-plated.
3-drawer filing cabinet.
I have not gone to view it, so I'm not really sure how it is at the pool. Right?
I also understand this will be published before the auction. I know we always do that.
Correct.
Yes.
Usually the publication requirement, as you can see on the resolution, is done if you have individual items that might be over 2,500, and it's done at a public or private sale. We don't have any items that would be considered over 2,500. Even the Jeep Grand Cherokee Kelly Blue Book value is about 15, but we still publish every time we have an auction 2 consecutive weeks in a row just to cover that base.
Also, I'd just like to suggest that under the police department, the last item on the first page, box with wiring harnesses, we have a customer who buys from our recycling center the copper wire and strips it, and we make some nice money on that. So I would just ask possibly that Andy Alvarez be notified of that. Maybe he could just take a look at the box and see if there is more value for us selling it to an individual, which we have done in the past, than put it up for auction for someone just to walk away with a prize. Are there any further points, discussions? Okay, I will stand for a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 251718, declaring surplus property for auction to be held on March 17, 2018, as presented by Renee Campton, our city clerk.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Might we have a roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead? Aye. Honorable Rolf Heschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Yes.
Honorable Joshua Frankel?
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is number 3, discussion action resolution number 2617-18, setting fees for land leases for private vehicle parking at the airport. And before I introduce Mark Leff, our airport manager, I just wanted to thank him. The chamber manager Fuentes was out there this past Saturday. We had about 50 or 60 people for the ribbon cutting of the Experimental Aircraft Association, which Larry Mullinex is the president, and our own Mark Leff is the vice president. It is a wonderful opportunity for our young students to get involved. The food was amazing. And so thank all of those who attend. Unfortunately, because of the wind, there were some demonstrations and fly-ins that we were going to have that had to be canceled because of safety issues. But I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm really glad that you and Mr. Mullinex have moved this project forward. The floor is yours, sir.
All right. So the resolution that I'm putting before today is for vehicle parking within the fence. I believe you all have the resolution in front of you, and I'll stand for any questions on that.
Are there any questions? I had one. I noticed that there is no discount if someone were to pay up front for a year. And I was figuring that, I don't know how we do the billing, whether we do it electronically, whether we put a postage stamp on a bill, but there might be some savings here if someone's willing to pay up front. Have we thought about that at all?
The purpose of this particular one, we're looking at that for more of the long-term leases with the hangar space. This is more of a transitional thing where we might have a pilot that's not able to get into a hangar, so he ties down his airplane on the apron and then he needs to park his vehicle someplace, because we do have a lot of pilots that fly in from other cities. So, and we may need this space for other use at a later date. So we didn't really want to tie ourselves into long-term, year-long leases. So if they're just month to month, there would be no need for advance payment discount, since they're already paying for 1 month in advance when they pay us.
Okay.
And if we're looking at $25 a month, 5%, pretty small amount of money for an advance payment. But we are looking at advance payment for the much longer term hangar leases.
So if someone would approach you and say, I'd like to rent this parking space for a year, would you give me a discount? What would your answer be?
No.
Okay. That's a very quick answer.
We'll take the money up front, and some do pay up front. We have people that do pay their hangar rentals in advance without discount, just because it's more convenient for them to write a single check than write 12 checks.
Sure.
So we do already have that without a discount.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Schlick.
Yeah. Mr. Blunt, what would happen with a pilot that wanted to have a spot for 2 weeks?
We don't have any provision for prorating, so they would pay the full $25.
Any further questions or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 261718, setting fees for land leases for private vehicle parking at the Tier C Municipal Airport as presented by Mark Leth, our airport manager.
The motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Heschler. Any further discussion? Questions, concerns? None. Hearing none, I will stand for a vote, please.
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead? Aye. Honorable Ralph Heschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Frankel?
Yes.
Thank you, carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the work you do out there. Number 4, discussion action, resolution number 2717-18, budget adjustment. Ms. Torres.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, Mr. Fuentes. Before I start my request for budget adjustment, I hope you guys can entertain me where I can explain the history about the pool, because there's a little bit of mystery that's out there floating in the community. So if you recall, several months ago, we were on the task of resurfacing the pool that cost between $95,000 to $100,000. At that time, we had already budgeted all our projects, and so when you're looking at $100,000 that you're going to have to find, that is a great amount where you're going to have to look where those funds are going to come from. As you know, the swimming pool is not self-sufficient, where the general fund already puts in over $110,000 to support that program. So what we decided and what we brought before you all was a cost analysis on cost savings by shutting down the pool. But we have to look at this. When you have a cost savings to shut down the pool, where does your cost savings come at the end? At the beginning, we needed that money because we had to get that resurfaced at the beginning and at that time to ensure we made the deadline of the commission, which was in April. So what we did was we looked at the money that the general fund put into the streets department that was slated to repave Sim Street into the pool fund to cover that cost. It was not coming out of the GRT dedicated street fund, which is the 1.6667. It was already money that was to the general fund that went to streets. So what we did is we just took that money from the general fund to the streets, to the swimming pool, and now we're going to be paying it back because we're at the tail end of the cost savings. So with that, Finance Department is respectively requesting a finance adjustment for the Municipal Street Fund, transfer in for Fund 216 of $60,000, and a transfer out from the pool fund, Fund number 295, $60,000. And I stand for any questions at that time.
Thank you, Commissioner Frankel.
Just for clarification, please.
The $60,000 that we're talking about that you're able to transfer back out of the pool fund were funds that would have been used to operate the pool during this closed period?
Yes, sir. Those are the cost savings for the times where we had the pool shut down.
That would be the cost of employees, chemicals, and the inflation of the dome?
Yes, sir. And utilities. Utilities is a huge cost that the pool pays for. That's one of the highest expense that they have to pay for.
It's a great asset to our city. I'd never like to see anything happen to it. It's not intended to make money.
Understandable. And again, we just want to give you the history of how we had to come up with the funding.
You see how expensive it is to run.
Yes, sir.
By how much you save.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? And I want to thank you for the explanation, because you are absolutely right. There is some misinformation running around the community on how we were able to, in effect, make this happen.
Yes, sir.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions? Seeing none or concerns, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 271718, budget adjustment as presented by Melissa Torres, our finance director, and thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Fischler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Frankel?
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is number 5, discussion action, resolution number 2817-18, confirming the City of Truth and Consequences to participate in the Department of Transportation Municipal Arterial Program, Local Government Road Fund Program. Tracy Burnett will be our presenter, who is our grants projects coordinator, and she is ably accompanied by Mario Juarez Infante from Wilson & Company.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. As you know, we are working hard at trying to find any type of funding available for any road repairs, and the Municipal Arterial Road Fund Program is one of the programs we're going to be applying for. It does require a resolution. It's a new program that I'm not familiar with, Mario, with Wilson & Company. We have procured them to do a traffic counter, which is a requirement of this, and he's also familiar with the project as well as the funding source. So I stand for any questions, and he's here to help answer any of those questions as well.
Thank you. Questions, concerns, Commissioner Clark?
Mr. Juarez, the traffic counter, I've done that before, many years ago, but what I remember is dependent upon how much traffic goes through a certain area is what helps get funding for a certain road project. Can you explain that to us a little bit more, how it works now?
Absolutely. Mayor and Commission and Mr. Manager, the program actually has, as they call on the solicitation letters, a rule of thumb guidance criteria for qualifying streets under the map. 4 out of those 5, really what it is if it ties into a DOT facility, then they're generally considered roads of importance or regionally functionally classified. So that's the primary criterion, right? And so by that, typically those facilities do carry a fair amount of ADT, or average daily traffic. You can be non-functionally classified, so that would mean a city-owned road that doesn't tie to any DOT facility. However, that road would have to serve an important role. For example, it might be a road that's utilized for emergency response, excuse me. Or that road may carry a lot of traffic. City of Anthony, for example, has a road that does just that. It has residential and businesses around it, so it's an important local road. The traffic count, specifically to your question that you're asking for, is number 1, it's a requirement in the application. And yes, the DOT does look at your roadway versus other roadways in terms of how much traveling vehicles are there. So we measure the ADT, average daily traffic, and the functional classification, meaning we can determine whether they're passenger cars or commercial freight traffic, for example. That's also important to know.
Ms. Burnett, do you have an idea of which roads we're going for, or are you just going out for money on this one?
Included in your packet, you have a map, and that is the 3rd Street here in front of the commission chambers from Gate down to, looks like Juniper.
Thank you. I did know that, but I just wanted you to say that. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Clark, Marty, could you maybe explain to the commission one of the also reasons for this road? And I think maybe that's part of the criteria under this program.
Yes, sir, Mr. Manager and Commission. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we looked at a number of roads that would be important, but because it's the city's first time and sort of engaging in this program, we wanted to make sure that you hear a lot, the legislators or the funding applications ask you, is this a feasible project? And the answer is, of course it is. The language in there is that it's planning, design, and construction, and it does meet the criteria under the DOT. It does tie into Date Street, which is important. It makes it a nice project in terms of from a qualification perspective. That's why we recommended it to staff.
One more question, please, Mayor. Manager Fuentes, I know that you coined this phrase all-in-one. And we've had trouble with the plumbing and the water delivery on this particular street that you're looking at. Is it possible to look at this with the paving, but also as that all-in-one project of when we dig this up to repave it, dig it up and also put in new water lines and sewer lines? Is that a possibility?
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Clark, the funding will specifically only be for the road improvements.
I understand
that. If we are successful, we'll need to do a separate analysis, and I'm sure, Mario and the Wilson and Company can assist us with that, is doing almost a cost estimate on what that would be. And then we would have to maybe possibly, come before the commission and identify potential sources that could fund that kind of a project. But we could definitely look at it and see if it's feasible to do it all in one for this particular, because it is quite a stretch. Do we know the distance for this project?
I did know, and I was afraid you were going to ask, because I didn't double check it. I'm sorry, sir, I don't want to guess the number at this point, but I do have that information.
Okay, but we definitely will look at that, if that's feasible to do it all at the same time.
Yeah, I think it would be a great start for that all-in-one kind of way of doing our city, instead of putting, road base on top of very poor plumbing, to do it, that way, if possible.
And Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Clark, and there is another project that, with the legislature identifying at least potentially as receiving $100,000 for downtown road improvements, and the reason for the $60,000 transfer is so we can combine that, and maybe even have additional match money from private sector to make a kind of a wider range project in the downtown area. We'll look at that question as well. Is can we do it, and what's the cost of doing that? And we'll present to the commissioners, if it's feasible to move forward with that concept of all-in-one.
Thank you, Manager. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have one. Since this is a new program, has NMDOT determined what the percentage of buy-in from the municipality would be? Like the local government road fund at 75-25. So, and the other part, Mario, is if we're eligible and we are awarded the award, do you have a time date? So if there is money that we have to put forth, that we can make sure that that's in our budget?
Mayor and Commission, absolutely. It's a 24-month term.
Okay.
On the grant match, and it is 25% match.
So, same as the local government.
Right, and you could ask for a waiver now if you wanted to do that. The legislation actually sets the amount of money that's put into the local government road fund that you're familiar with, and within that program, they slice it up into pieces of a pie, right? And each of those slices has a different name. So the co-op is the one you're referring to. A map is another slice. The cap, which the county would qualify, is another slice. Bus route money is another slice. So there's several slices within that, and the percentage split of that pie is set by legislation. So just a little bit of information.
And do you know, Tracy or Mario, would that come before the RPO?
The RTPO typically doesn't. That comes directly from Ms. Deborah Hudson, whom I'm sure you know. And the valuations are made in Santa Fe with District 1, Trent, final recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah, Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Juarez, on this particular road going Juniper down to Date Street, where exactly on that road are you going to put the counter?
We were targeting to just locate it midstream. midway in the road section
So
itself.
where Foch turns down towards State Street?
Correct.
So why don't you tell all my friends to go Foch to
You
State Street?
you could make an announcement and ask everybody to
I
like really
just
drive through
did.
there.
Do you have any detour signs, Commissioner Clark, in your closet? All right,
Thank
thank you.
you.
This is good information, and thank you whoever discovered this thing and brought it to us. Thank you. We should have as many hooks baited out in that pond for fish, that's for sure, so thank you. Any further questions or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution Number 281718, confirming the City of Truth or Consequences to participate in the Department of Transportation Municipal Arterial Program Local Government Road Fund Program, as presented by Tracy Burnett and Mario Juarez from Wilson and Company.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Clark, and probably Commissioner Heschel. I thought his pen go up like that. I'm trying to catch my
I think it's a third.
All right, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Frankel?
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Next item, and the last item under G, is discussion action alley vacation for Anthony Flores in Bella Vista Heights. For the alley contained in block number 12, our presenters are Robbie Travis, building inspector, and Susanna Diller, planner and GIS. And before you just start, I would like to, under advice of council, ask that after your presentation, if there's anyone who wanted to speak for or against this vacation, we will give you that opportunity after the presentation by staff. Thank you.
All right. Hello again, Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager. We're here to present the alley vacation for Anthony Flores in Bella Vista Heights. The alley is contained within Block 12. You see in your packet on the plat there, it's that line marked in blue. And the staff recommendation is to proceed with the alley vacation, as the alley runs through Mr. Flores' property and contains no city infrastructure or utilities.
Okay.
Questions?
Any questions, concerns? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against the vacation that is being proposed by staff? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion, please, and thank you.
I have just a question.
Yes, Commissioner Clark, sorry.
So if this is vacated, this alley, and Mr. Flores?
Flores, yes.
At some point wanted to subdivide it back into lots, would he be able to do so? He'd have to undo the vacation of that alley to put in the city utilities, or the city utilities feed that property through a different venue?
So, I mean, his plan is actually to build a home sort of about where the alley is. So he's going to be using this as one functional lot. So I don't see that happening in sort of the immediate future, but utilities serve this property coming from the top, so they wouldn't need to cross that property at that point. So,
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I will stand for a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the approval of the vacation of alley for Anthony Flores in Bella Vista Heights for the alley contained in Block 12 as presented by Robbie Travis, our building inspector, and Susanna Diller, our planner and GIS tech, and on the recommendation of the city.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second. Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. It carries unanimously. Next item is, anyone have to take a break for a minute? Moving on. H1, unfinished business, discussion action, automated meter reading project for electric and water systems, year-out energy service company, Manager Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, so we have the project back on the agenda. We had to postpone it for a couple of meetings. So the original project that was being proposed was a $5.1 million project, and that was to replace all the water meters and all electric meters. The system that was being proposed was almost like if I want to kind of compare it to the Tyler system that we have now for our accounting system. It's obviously a very advanced system that would consolidate both electric and water under one meter reading system. However, it is an expensive system, as you can see, the $5.1 million. In the investment grade audit, which measured the recapture revenue on the water side, we were only looking at $96,000 additional revenue. Potentially there could be more. That was a conservative figure. But there was still going to be some of the savings used from the sewer, obviously some operational savings. Based on some of the comments and concerns that we've heard from staff, and well, I think the reason why I said, I think we all agree in the sense that I think there is value in moving forward with a automated meter reading system. Maybe this is not the best fit for us. This original proposal is not the best fit, but I think it is worth looking at a automated meter reading system. So with that said, we do have the opportunity to proceed forward and authorize staff to continue to look at options. There are options where if we continue to use only, rather than looking at what do we want and then let's try to pay for it, let's go the other way. This is what we can afford, is $96,000 that we feel we have identified as revenue that we can recapture. What can that pay us? What can that buy us? And if there's a little bit of room because we're short, then maybe we'll have the commissioner look at that. So if the commissioners feel more comfortable, we can go ahead and move away from the original proposal and continue to work with staff, whether it's continuing to work with YESCO on a proposal, or as it was mentioned, there's other vendors out there as well that might have some input on a proposal. The value of going with a YESCO is that we are using when we go out and get the finances, we have identified a guarantee amount, which means that we hopefully don't have to dedicate any water revenue stream or any GRT for this project. It's already built within that savings there. As you heard, I mean, we have potentially needs to replace infrastructure. We do have other issues that I will be bringing up to the commission in regards to some of our infrastructure needs that need to be replaced and upgraded. So we're trying to look at all these different avenues of where can we find money and how can we do multiple things at the same time. So it is still a value to proceed forward with trying to find the best avenue for automating our meter readers. If we go through a standalone water system, it will be funded by the water system only. And then we can go with a standalone electric system, then we'll look at funding it through a standalone system. I know Sierra Electric Co-op is already looking at updating their meter reading system, so that would give us an opportunity to work with them through Bo in contacts with the director there, see what system they have, is it feasible for us? But again, what is the cost of that system as well? But I mean, so at this time, commissioners, I think the recommendation from staff is to proceed forward, at least if the commissioners agree to, with continue researching the possibility of looking at a reasonable, automated meter reading system, which could be, a combination of both options 2 and 3, which, obviously we don't want to go forward with the original plan, but we want to see if we can continue to go forward with a modified plan that we can work with YESCO, and if not, then we look at other avenues out there. But I think that if we're all in agreement that there is benefit for an automated meter reading system, then we need to continue to do more work on our end and provide a better option for both the PUAB to consider and the commission to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, concerns, ideas?
Manager Fuentes, you kept me from being in the swing vote. I appreciate that. Yeah, the YESCO thing, I'm sorry, just doesn't pencil out. And I wish it did, but it doesn't. In my opinion, still, there might be another option, and certainly I'd be willing to entertain it. But I've also had several other people come up and say there are other options. And, to go 20 years and end up with no value just doesn't appeal to me at all. I'd like us, if there, you know, and I'm still not convinced that we've got 46,000 in both wastewater and water. But we might, you know, I haven't seen that proof or the pencil to a paper. But I think that a lot of it has to do with the wastewater and water departments and the electric departments to, you know, just like the Tyler system, as you said, to be able to come up to the 21st century, and would like to do that without causing so much questionable debt to the city. And so that's the real issue, Ms. Torres, is if we're going to do something, let's get a real tangible benefit from it, not something that's going to either break even at the end of a period of time, because that's really not. I know we have to operate on a nonprofit basis, but it would be nice to get some benefit that we could put back out into capital improvement instead of having to borrow from capital improvement to pay off on an obligation to a debt. So anyway, I appreciate Manager Fuentes that you're willing to look at some different options, and I hope that my fellow commissions will agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Any other comments, concerns? Commissioner Frankel?
You know, what I'd really like to see our energy and resources being put towards, as opposed to working on this project that has been fully looked at by the PUAB, is that we have several parts in our community that are infrastructure is weakened and failing, that we've identified as fixable problems, and to try to find solutions for some of those problems, like our water pipes and aging transistors. I just feel that the project of this scope is years away, and something that could probably be put off for 24 to 48 months before we start needing to move into the future of meters. And I'd just like to see our current meters working and functioning and be able to do a job like this in-house, especially. But I just don't feel that we're needing to move this far into the future with as many things that we have that are still in the past.
Commissioner Clark.
Mayor, City Manager, didn't the PUAB, they didn't say no to the meters, they just said there's another option for the meters, possibly. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Clark, I believe that is correct. The consensus is still there that it is a beneficial project to proceed forward with an automated meter system. I think it's just a question of the how do we best finance it, or what's the scope and the size of it.
That's what I remember the recommendation being. Thank you. Thank you. And it's similar to what you're saying.
Sorry. Commissioner Heschel.
Yeah, I would hope that as we continue forward, you know, I would support an automated system of some sort, but a combination of contracting it out and in-house installation, I think would be important in my estimation, and with the idea of some kind of revenue generation, because this system could end up making money for the city if it was installed properly and we did the right thing. So I think if we look at it that way, I would never want to pass up an opportunity for the city to put itself in a better financial situation if they modernized.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I feel that as we move forward to make this happen, which our community needs, you know, this isn't dead in the water, but we ought to involve our community. Questions and answers, get the public involved and let them know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and include them on part of our decisions. It seems like the public is always left in the dark, and I feel that this would better help make decisions if the community could answer some questions, or at least be assured that what we're doing is what needs to be done and is the best interest of the city at hand.
Okay. Any other concerns?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to kind of address the question about the benefit and do we proceed now forward. I think, and I pulled up and I just wanted to zoom in on this part of the presentation, because what you see there is, obviously we originally started with a water system, investment grade audit, and that's what YESCO did out there and did. So they were guaranteeing at least that we were going to save $96,000 that could go towards a project. And that's why I'm saying there might, possibility there that we can maybe try to see what that can afford us. But what's important to note here is that because of going into a new system, to Commissioner Heschler's point, is that if we go to a new system, we're actually capturing additional revenue. In the sewer system, the investment grade audit identified possibility $104,000 in addition to new revenue, and that's without having to increase any rates. That's just because we are losing money right now with the current system that we have. In addition to that, at least we know there's going to be some savings both on the water, $46,000, and the electric department, additional $46,000. So it's revenue that is right now we're not capturing, and we are losing that money. So it is beneficial to try to go forward with a project, because we know that if we can make it work where we can use the $96,000 and maybe a little bit more to pay for the system, it's going to generate additional revenue that's much needed to replace the sewer lines, to make an all-in-one project. We're trying to look at multiple avenues of how we can finance these improvements, while at the same time going to funding agencies who are going to tell us, you need to dedicate a gross receipts tax, or you're going to have to dedicate a percentage of your fee structure for the project, as in the case with the wastewater and USDA. I mean, we're going after USDA money for the water system and other funding sources. So we're trying to just explore every avenue, and right now, the benefit is that we have identified through the work that YESCO did that there are some revenue that we can capture. It's just a matter, let's go forward with a project that everybody seems to agree it is beneficial, but it's, which is the best approach that we should take for that. And I do want to mention that we do, with one of our new hires, Kathy, from the wastewater, does have some experience in dealing with these type of automated systems. So we're definitely going to, Tracy and I will be consulting with her as well, and she'll be working with us and trying to come, work with, if the commissioners authorize us to proceed forward, she'll be involved in the process. And her background and knowledge in these kind of systems will be very helpful as we move forward. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Madam. I think it's also important that, and just one of the points that Commissioner Franco had mentioned, is that we not shelve things where we have the staff and the capability to continue to investigate and explore. We don't know what's happening at the state level this year. The governor still is that period of time where she still can take that red marker out and cross off allocations to communities and municipalities. We don't know where the feds are going. And since we have obviously identified a need and we have identified a problem, I would like us, if the manager and department heads feel that there is enough time for staff to keep current on what they're doing and also explore other possibilities to bring back to the commission, I think that's the road that we should take. If you've heard John Arthur Smith on the radio last week, I mean, he is not going to part with a dime of money in that rainy day fund, and we are going to have to be creative, inventive, and look internally within our own ranks and our own citizens to work with this commission to make our infrastructure and to bring it up to date so it serves us well. We are being remunerated for the services and the gallonage that we deliver. I think that is fair and reasonable, and these type of found resources and revenue can, to Commissioner Clark's point, help fund other needs of infrastructure. So I would certainly hope that the motion, if it is made, is to authorize staff to continue to move forward, to continue to explore, and when they feel they have something of a concrete nature or a couple different ideas, to bring it back to the commission. Let's get involved in it. To Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead's point, let's have a public hearing that's about the public, and let's do something that we're all proud of, that we can make work for all of us. So if there's no other discussion, I will stand for a motion, please. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. I had that deadly pause. I was going to make the motion myself, but go ahead.
Mayor Green, I'd like to make the motion that we do not contract with YESCO at this time, and authorize staff to research additional options for water and electric meter replacement programs to include contracting out some systems and/or doing some projects in-house.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I need a second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Any further discussion?
I'm just wondering if I could amend that
Commissioner
motion,
Clark.
Commissioner Heschler, to add that we would keep that all-in-one concept in the back of our minds as we're looking at this project.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay for you to?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second and an amended motion and a second on that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is I, new business discussion action, amendment to the joint powers agreement known as JPA between the Sierra County Commission, the Sierra County Detention, and the city related to the renewal of detainee housing term. Our presenter is our police chief, Mike Apodaca.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager. The contract between the County of Sierra and the Detention Center and the City of Truth and Consequences for the purpose of housing and care of adult prisoners is up for renewal. I spoke with Virginia Lee, the detention administrator, in December, and she was in agreement to run the same course as far as costs and basically the same agreement. And correct me if I'm wrong, the county had already approved their end, right? So, stand for any questions.
Thank you. Questions, concerns?
Chief, I would just make a point here, looking at that amendment, I just want to clarify something. It says on paragraph B that the initial term of the contract expired on July of 2018. Actually, shouldn't it be expires? There hasn't expired already.
I think that's just probably a typo.
Yeah, I just want to make sure for the record that's what I mean, that it hasn't expired yet. It's still...
Yes, it's
yeah,
still
okay,
in
that's what I'm
effect.
getting at. Okay.
Concerns? I guess this is nothing we can negotiate down. The cost. Do you, off the top of your head, Chief, do you know how much it cost us last year for this?
It varies, but I do not have that figure for him. I apologize.
I know
for
it's
that.
probably in our budget, I just thought you might just... Okay, any further questions, concerns? Seems to be just standard doing business. I will stand for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the amendment to the joint powers agreement JPA between the Sierra County Commission, Sierra County Detention, and the city related to the renewal of detainee housing terms as presented by Chief Apodaca.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
It carries unanimously. The next item is discussion action branding for the City of Truth and Consequences. I'm going to be the presenter on that.
Should we order lunch?
You know, you could have said dinner. Well, thank you for I will be quick, because I have to hit the other room, the other building real fast. Actually, I made, it's a typo, and this is not Ms. Canton's wrongdoing, it's mine. It should not be branding. A brand is a mark. It should be a logo. So, think about City by the Bay. Think about the Mile High City. Right now, we have billboards on I-25, Hot Springs, Cool Town. The city owns the name, America's Spa Town. Commissioner Clark was involved with the Budget Living folks that came here many, many years ago, and I believe she coined the name, or helped them coin the name, fed them the words, America's Most Affordable Spa Town. Every day in the last 2 years, out of the Commission's offices alone, there have been over 1,000 emails sent in town and out of town. I don't know how many emails and purchase orders that has the name Truth or Consequences has left City Hall, has left the manager's office. I think we are missing the boat and an opportunity that is not going to cost us a dime. And what I'd like to suggest, and this was a suggestion of our clerk treasurer Renee Canton, because I'd never heard of a Survey Monkey before, but she told me about it. I would like for us to put up on the city's website some of the verbiage that we are using now and ask people to vote on it. And if you don't like what you see, put something up there. We are going into budget hearings very soon, hopefully after our election. We're going to be awarding maybe some money to some organizations that are going to be advertising events. Rather than just truth or consequences, how about truth or consequences and in italics, Hot Springs Cool Town, or America's Spa Town, or America's most affordable spa town, or something that's in the mind of a citizen right now who will get that information into City Hall. Let us not wait until the right moment, because the right moment never happens. We tried, it didn't work out. We're going to be trying again with an event coordinator, tourism director. Right now, every day that we send out an email or a purchase order or give a business card to an out-of-town entity, they don't know that we have Hot Springs. And that is our DNA, in my personal opinion. That's what separates us from the crowd. That's what makes us unique and different, besides of our citizens and our friendliness and our art galleries and our restaurants and our museums and everything else. It's that Hot Springs that no one else has, that plus everything else that we have. And if this is successful, look at New Mexico True. I think, Commissioner Clark, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's maybe 6 years in the making right now and still going. And maybe if we do this and we are consistent, our businesses will start to change their letterhead stationery, and we will become Truth or Consequences, and underneath that name, an italicized something, a logo. And that is who we are, and that is what we are. It's not the only pony in the corral, but it's the one that catches everyone's eye. So I would just like to make a suggestion that if my fellow commissioners feel this has some value, that make a motion to authorize us to go ahead with this, to let Ms. Canton set up a survey monkey for the citizens, and let's see what the citizens feel about their own community and what's going to stick out, what's going to be remembered about our community. As far as I'm concerned, it's the Hot Springs.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by, was that because you agree with it, or you just want to get hungry? You want to go home fast?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion.
I have a
second.
comment.
And a comment. Commissioner Clark, yes. ma'am.
Okay, so logo and branding, and I only bring this up because I'm helping write the new description for the Convention Center Director. And America's Most Affordable Spa Town is a great one, that feedback I've gotten over the years, and this one came out of 2002, so it's been around for a while. My only, in retrospect, would have been to put Hot Springs Town as opposed to Spa Town, because when you hear spa, it could be anything, but Hot Springs is what really sets us apart. But that to me is the brand. When you think about us, we're an affordable, we're Hot Springs, and we're a small town. We're not a big city. A logo to me is like a picture or something that tells a story. It's like the international logo for Hot Springs is the little, the three squiggly lines that kind of circle at the bottom. So maybe we could put that out also, is we've got brand and logo, and this is something that we're going to stay with, and we want to stay with it indefinitely, whether we like it or not, just kind of like the state tourism, whether we like it or not. We're New Mexico True, and people identify that with us now. And instead of changing, maybe, and even modifying too much, it's just, those were just my thoughts, is I dislike New Mexico True, but we know it works. this logo in Truth or Consequences has changed so many times since I've been here, and the brand has changed so many times that you just don't know what it is. And Truth or Consequences definitely does not say the word Hot Springs. So, to your credit, Mayor, I think it's really awesome that we put this out and then we get feedback from people.
Absolutely.
And say, what would you like to hear, instead of us just making the decision. It would be nice to have something like a contest to the public, you know, put some things out and say, do you have a better idea? So I think it's a great idea.
Excellent. And
Thank you.
Not to get crosswise with my
Don't
fellow
get-
commissioner.
you can get crosswise
but
with
if you
me.
go into the dictionary and look under the word logo, it says an identifying statement.
Or mark.
A brand is a mark. It doesn't say that, but that's another discussion.
That's okay.
That's
That's okay.
after-
You can read
after-
this.
And I knew you were going to call me on that, and that's why I went into the dictionary to look for it.
I figure.
So, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And then we will ask Ms. Canton to set that up, and maybe we can just do a little bit of thing in the newspaper or something and have people come up with. We'll put up some of the items that we're using right now, like the billboards, Hot Springs, Cool Town. I totally agree with Commissioner Clark. It is Hot Springs. It is Hot Springs. Should be in the name somewhere along those lines. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much for your support on that. I appreciate it. Report, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and I'll be brief in light of the time that we have. Just a couple of quick updates to the Commissioners and the members of the public. We have engaged, thanks to Arnie, Tracy, we have engaged a engineering firm, Molson & Corbin, who will be assisting staff and working with the Impact Fee Board to update the impact fee study. They will be scheduling a meeting next month to look at the CIP and the fee schedule. So that's already in the works. We'll be moving forward on that. We want to thank Commissioner Heschler, Melissa, for helping us in getting at least some of those cable posts, some millings, and some other materials so that we can use it on our dirt roads, as well as even paving some of the crosswalks. And I think one of the things that Don provided and Tracy is the total cost of all those other projects that we were reviewing last time, and we kind of designated one project for the local government road fund. The question I have for staff is, okay, well, now the challenge is, where do we get the rest of the money to do the rest of them? Well, this is all, could be part of that solution. So that's why we're trying to find all these other different revenue sources so that we don't, by the time we're done with that list, it might be 5-10 years from now. And I think we owe it to the citizens to try to expedite it if we can. So thank you all for helping on that end. The utility office, as you all might have seen, hopefully we didn't get too many complaints that they were closed, but they were doing some small remodeling and painting, and they're doing a great job. So we're happy to provide, as Melissa stated, to me is a fresh look, and Sonia, the ladies are doing an excellent job there. The source manhole replacement project is underway. As you all might have seen, some of the roads are being closed for them to get in and rehab some of the manholes that need to be replaced, and that project is going to run till April of 2018. So and we anticipate more closures. Swimming pool is coming along very well. I think I don't see Don here anymore, but Tracy's here, and actually she's helping with the list of items of improvements at the pool before we do the grand reopening, as Tracy suggested. So we're looking at possibly, April 14th. Tracy, is that for another grand opening of the pool? So staff is working diligently in making some improvements out there so that we can have a good event. Following that grand opening, we'll have a animal shelter reopening as well. The chief and Lieutenant Baker, working along with Melissa and other staff members, will be, I believe today at 1 o'clock is the final walkthrough for the project. So hopefully we'll have that finalized soon, and then they're starting to furnish the facility, getting all the policies and procedures in place. I believe we're all going to advertise for a part-time to assist in the operations. So that's coming along very well. So we're looking at an animal shelter reopening after the pool to give the chief, everybody ample time to get ready for the opening and operations of that. Parks and Recreation is doing an excellent job out there, kind of painting some of the shelters and maintenance. And we're still we're working on other projects that will come back to the commission, such as options for like the golf course. That's still something that I'm still working on and we'll be bringing back to the commissioners. Tracy did send me an email about the city already receiving the fogger for our vector control, and that was through a New Mexico Department of Health grant. Is that correct? So we already have that a new piece of equipment, and Andy is planning to do another annual spring cleanup, and that will be at the end of March. So he'll be working with staff and the other departments and entities to coordinate all of that again. So stretch your muscles and put your goggles and your gloves, right? So we can be out there assisting. And commissioners, and that's all I have for manager's report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Attorney Rubin.
I have no report, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead.
I would just like to thank everyone. I would like to thank staff for their presentations, both last meeting and this meeting. Thank you for bringing us up to the 21st century and bringing things online, and it was really great and amazing. I want to thank the public for your comments, for being present, for listening to us, and for being part of our community. I would like to thank our police for being here and present each and every meeting. The commissioners, Josh, I'd like to thank you for your water harvesting, continuing that. This could be my last meeting. I do want to remind everybody to get out and vote on Tuesday, March the 6th. Remember, it is the municipal election. Please get out and exercise your right. And also, absentee continues through Friday. I would like to thank the commissioners. It's been great working with you. I hope to continue after Tuesday, but who knows? So anyway, thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead. Commissioner Hessel.
No report, sir.
Commissioner Clark.
No report.
Commissioner Frankel.
I have to reiterate what Sandy just said. I too would like to thank the staff that I had a chance to work with over the last 2 years. It's been an honor to work with this commission. It's been very exciting times to see the city moving forward the way it is. It's been very thrilling to see the money that's been put into our assets in this city, and to see things like the Earl Gearpunk Rodeo Arena getting upgrades, to see our city pool getting upgraded. I would love to see in the future the same energy put into our golf course. It's in dire need of desperate repairs. Our tennis courts and our gun range, our city parks. Should I not be reelected, I would hope that this mantle gets carried forward, and the joy and the love that I shared for this community continues to grow with this commission. Thank you for your time and your service, and it's been an honor to serve you all. Hopefully we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you. I'll be brief. One of our partners, Main Street Truth and Consequences, received an email which I did copy the commission on. I just would like to recognize and read just the first line of this email. Main Street Truth and Consequences Executive Director Linda DiMarino was recently elected to serve as Vice President of the New Mexico Coalition of Main Street Communities. It's great when people's work is recognized throughout the entire state, and I thought that was worth commenting on. I just got this morning, so I apologize to City Manager Fuentes and my fellow commissioners. I will put it in your mailbox by this afternoon. I asked Andy to run some recycling numbers for us, and I'm not going to give you the individual breakdown because you'll have it, but in 2016 we recycled and sold and diverted from Las Cruces 415 tons of recyclable material, and in 2017 it was 467 tons. Very quickly, trailer holds about 20 tons, and a trailer costs us about $1,000. So here is one of the opportunities for the citizens, and I appreciate you realizing this and helping yourselves and your neighbors, that the more we recycle, the less we send to Las Cruces. If we cannot send 7 trailers a week, but send 4 trailers a week, That's $3,000 times 52, that's $150,000 times 3, that's almost a $500,000 savings. What I would love to see, if we could get to that point, and there's enough revenue in the solid waste department to pay off the Capital One bond, I would love to thank the citizens for doing a great job of recycling and roll back some of our rates. Because I think that's the way you get things done, where it positively impacts their checkbook, rather than always thinking, oh my God, it's going to negatively impact my checkbook because they're going to raise rates. I thank you so much for the citizens. Let's continue to move along this. Right now we're at a diversion rate of 11.7%. The state is 22.9%. The country is 36%. There is no reason why a small community such as Truth or Consequences and the folks that live in the area, the surrounding areas and communities that come into us for all those services and recreation and shopping and medical care and libraries and swimming pools and golf courses and tennis clubs, they're coming here. Bring your recycles to us, and it will really pay off in the end. The last thing I wanted to tell you about is that we're not alone in this world. I had a conference call with Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem of Las Cruces on Thursday, and they are going to be issuing a GO bond, a general obligation bond, in the amount of $20 million. And I asked Greg Smith, I said, Greg, so what are you going to use the $20 million for? What I heard was dog parks. Thank you, Carol Wheeler and staff and volunteers. I heard their airport is crumbling, that they have to repave the airport because it's quote-unquote an international airport. I heard that they have problems with roads. And I asked Greg, well, how are you going to fund a $20 million bond? And he said, very simple, $1 a month per property owner. $1 a month per property owner. This commission talked about, and it just didn't have any traction last year, about taking a look at our municipal property tax and have that money redlined at $146,000 where it is right now, and any increase over a projected period of time would do the streets that Manager Fuentes and Commissioner Clark and everyone else has been talking about and hearing about. So I just want to let my fellow commissioners know, this morning I met with the Mr. Whitney, the assessor, and the county treasurer, and they are doing some pro forma spreadsheets for me to what $1 a month per piece of taxable property, what type of revenue that would generate, designated specifically for infrastructure, road, water improvements over a given period of time that would have a sunset clause, and to see what type of money we're talking about. And hopefully I'll be able to report back to you just as a discussion item on what that would mean of additional revenue. I mean, I understand, I know that when Tracy came back from, I think it was the Water Trust Board in Santa Fe, I asked her, how did it go? And there was something like $140 million worth of requests and $20 million in the pot to give out. And when they asked her what our water rates were, their faces sunk. Because no one's going to give you money if you can't help support yourself. And we are like the 11th lowest water rate, municipal water rate community in the state. And I understand that we're financially challenged. I get it. I understand. We have to be creative. We have to look ways. How can we help ourselves? Because the state is having a hard time helping themselves. The trickle-down theory is not going to work. Pennies are not going to help us. We're going to have to deep down and dig down and find ways to come up with fair and reasonable streams of money that can be dedicated for projects that can be phased in over 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. So this commission, or whatever commission is up here, leaves the community better than they found it. And I think that's all anyone really asks us to do. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Manager Fuentes.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I apologize. I did fail to report on one very significant item, and that's Robbie. Robbie has notified me that he's going to be going back to Edgewood. So we're going to be sorry that we're going to lose him at the end of March. And I bring this to you all's attention, Commissioners, because a lot of the small communities, it's going to have a huge impact because the state did change the regulations that now communities, if they're going to have an inspector, we have to perform all of the electrical, mechanical, plumbing. I mean, it's not what we were used to. So I am working with Robbie and Susanna to restructure the community development, the building inspection operations. So now CID will be more involved in that process. So that will be forthcoming to the commissioners at a future meeting. So I just kind of want to let you know that, that's within the next month, we're going to be working on that, and we're working with Melissa and staff on the job descriptions for that. So it's going to change how we operate in the building department because of the new regulations. So I just wanted to kind of mention that to the commissioners because it will have a significant impact in operation.
I just want to know why you accepted his resignation.
He hasn't, and he's not going to. So there.
I still have a month to convince him, okay, but like I said, I mean, unfortunately, the city of Socorro is going through the same pains, and there's definitely other communities out there that, especially the smaller communities, we're just not going to be able to fill a one person that will do all of those disciplines for inspections. So hopefully Robbie he'll still be around. But I just wanted to thank him for his service. But again, we have a month where he's going to help us kind of organize everything.
And I think I might be able to speak for the commission. We wish you the best in health and happiness, you and your family. It is a major hit for this community. It's a major hit for staff. I would just like to suggest, Manager Fuentes, that if this would be appropriate, once we decide on how we're going to be utilizing CID all the time, et cetera, that we have some type of a letter that goes out to all of the construction businesses that are registered with the city of TRC, so that they know that we're doing business a little bit differently, and they might not be able to pick up the phone at 9 o'clock and see Robbie at 10 if you have to wait for an inspector to come down from Santa Fe, so they can do their business a little bit differently. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I'd just like to tell the commission, thank you very much for all your support through the years. All of you have backed me very good, and I appreciate that, and I wish you all the best, and I'm sorry I'm leaving, but I may be back someday, or I may be with the state and go inspecting with them. But thank you very much for your support.
If you go with the state, you see TRC, make us first.
Yes, I'm going to try to stay in this area.
Thank you. I'll stand for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We're out of here. Thank you. See you next March 14th.